the two men took the boys for a carriage ride throughout Philadelphia in places that the boys hadn't been before, or that's what it said.
Murders, mysteries, unexplained stories, and our family's crazy opinions on them all. Join us now. The Family School of Thought is in session.
Okay, welcome everybody. Yet another week of the Family School of Thought. How's everybody doing tonight?
Great.
Good. Jess, how's the weather there?
It's the same as last week. Very, very windy.
Windy and cold. That's right. Yeah. How about you, Cass? How's the weather in Portland?
It's been rainy. It's been Portland.
Okay. All right, let's get going then. I don't want to waste no time, but Jess, give us some fun facts.
All right. So I know I gave a bunch of facts last week. I'm going to give some more today. So I have four mental floss amazing facts for you today. So we're in a Nintendo family. We grew up with Nintendo. We have the original Nintendo console. Before the internet, Nintendo employed game counselors whom players could call on the phone to get advice and assistance on navigating games. Dad, Did you know that? Did you ever call that number and get help with Zelda?
No, but I used to work in a restaurant that time, like early 80s.
Yeah.
And it was a big deal. I don't think they even have many. What were they called? It was like a
arcade.
It's like a Chuck E. Cheese, but it was just all arcades.
Oh yeah.
Okay, I mean that was a big business. People,
yeah,
hundreds of arcade games in one building, and so I worked in a restaurant, and they had the arcades in there, but it was like a table.
Yeah, with a glass top.
So me and my friends, because I was the manager there, had the key to the machine. We'd stay there all night long playing those games. I mean, literally all night long, for free. You had to pay to do them, but it was a big deal because you couldn't do that at home. There was nothing to play.
Right. Yeah.
So we'd stay there all night long until somebody came in the morning playing those games. Yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun.
You never called a game counselor.
I never knew that you could call anybody. What would I call them about?
To help get assistance.
It's like cheat codes. Like they're basically are giving you the advice of how to get through the level.
Super Mario Brother. How do I get past this Bowser?
I mean, we would go all night long.
I think we figured out most of the Super Mario Brother cheats and hidden things.
Yeah, he could have had help doing that Zelda. I thought he would murder somebody.
That's what I said. Did you ever call for Zelda?
No.
I literally would stay up all night playing. That was at home.
Yeah, that was at home. I remember
all night long playing that Zelda.
I remember. And we were not allowed to play that game. And you would leave it running because you couldn't save it. So you would leave it running all day.
Yeah, I was really
remember Zelda being that way.
But that ruined it for me because once that Zelda, it was so hard to get through it. Once I finally did it, I was like, I'm
done.
Yeah,
and I didn't play for years.
Yeah,
it was crazy in our house when he would play Zelda.
Yeah.
I didn't know you played Zelda at all.
I think you were just a baby by then.
Yeah, maybe it was before you were born or maybe you were a baby.
Because Zelda, you couldn't leave it where you left off.
No, you had to
start all over again.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So
I wouldn't play for years after that. Once I finally beat it, I'm like, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah. So
and then you kids got into playing it, and I never really did play until what was the one Jordan had where you drive the cars?
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto, yeah. Then I really got into it again for that. I never really
That I
was
remember
into
you playing.
war ones.
What about Dr. Mario?
That's
But
what. Okay,
now-
that's the one I.
Hey,
Now we're
we
back to
still
old
play
school
that.
Dr.
Leave it
Mario.
alone.
Yeah.
I love Dr.
But that one,
Mario.
it's not like you have to like. There's no like
It's a puzzle.
conquest. It's
Yeah.
just
No.
like Tetris,
It's-
basically.
It's
Yeah.
just
But
compete
before
against
Nintendo,
yourself.
we had, what was it called? Before Nintendo? The first
Atari.
video, Atari. And by the way, folks out there in YouTube land, I have an original Atari, games, paddles, everything. In the
Nobody
box
wants it.
never been
Nobody
opened.
wants it. We've been through this a million times.
Mhm.
You never know. There's a collector out
Okay.
there who needs that.
Okay. So that was a mental floss, amazing fact. We're going to move on now.
Okay.
We got more, okay?
What
So
was,
the
oh, yeah, you
longest-
can call it.
the longest case of hiccups lasted 68 years. Did you know that?
Oh, wow.
Ugh.
68 years.
I would hate to have the hiccups. I hate having just for 5 minutes.
68 years.
68
And he
years.
didn't commit suicide or anything.
I guess not. The largest snowflake ever recorded was 15 inches wide, and it was discovered in Montana in 1887.
By a
Sam-
fisherman, right?
I don't know, probably a male. Let's be realistic. It's probably a
Exactly.
male,
Somebody that's exaggerating
15
something.
inches.
A male always.
but it does say it was most certainly a messy jumble of small snowflake crystals rather than one picture perfect
Right.
snowflake. So,
Okay.
but yeah, mostly a male probably discovered it. So, my last fact of the day is, maybe you guys know this, maybe you don't. Bruce Willis's famous line in Die Hard, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfuckers," is
What?
what? What?
What kind of show we have going
Did
here?
you know it was not scripted? He actually made it up on the spot just to make the crew laugh, and they kept it in the movie.
I believe it. Sounds like
I didn't know if
something
you guys
to
knew
do.
that or not. I'm not I don't think I've ever really seen Die Hard ever.
I
don't,
didn't.
me
I've
and
never
Barbara,
seen
I
that
don't think I've
'cause-
seen that whole thing, but
Every time we
it
have
is
somebody,
this time of year. It is a Christmas movie.
It
So
is a
say
Christmas
no.
movie.
Don't really
Well,
know
it is.
why.
It's based in Christmas
yeah,
time.
Yeah, it's based in Christmas. It's the same as like Harry Potter, the first one, The Sorcerer's Stone, is not a Christmas movie, but it comes out during Christmas time.
we were talking about this
Yeah.
at work the other day because we always do this. Okay, give us your top 5,
Mhm.
whatever. And so we were doing top 5 Christmas movies. And by chance, do you guys know what my number 1 was?
A Christmas Story.
Elf.
Elf.
A Christmas family vacation.
Yeah,
And the Christmas Vacation was by.
Christmas Vacation.
But anyways, somebody said Die Hard. I'm like, Die Hard's not a Christmas movie. I don't know that I've ever seen Die Hard, tell you the truth.
Yeah, I don't know if I have either, but
I'll probably see it. But I never really was a big fan of Bruce Willis. Okay,
We'll
but
see.
you're
This one is. I think this one's very commonly known of how like kind of creepy it actually is. But this is Semi-Charmed Life by Third Eye Blind. And a lot of people think this is kind of just like a fun like song to sing about. But it's actually the singer talking about how he wants to be on drugs and how he is on drugs and he doesn't want to give them up. There's lyrics like, and then I bumped up, I took the hit I was given, and then I bumped again and I bumped again. I said, I want something to get me through this semi-charmed life. Baby, I want something else. I'm not listening to what you say. Goodbye. So it's about drug use and how he is addicted to drugs, and people in his life tell him he needs to find something else. And he said, no, this is what I want. So it's about drug use.
who is this guy? I knew who Third Eye Blind is. It's the lead singer, but what's his name?
Oh, I don't know.
what his name is.
He's not dead. He's still alive.
He might be. He might be. I don't know.
Okay. Cool.
I'll look it up later.
All right. Okay. Dee, I believe you're up this week.
Okay. Yep, I think I am.
Okay, let's get rolling.
All right. I am doing mine on the kidnapping of Charles Brewster Ross, and it is one of the first American child kidnappings in the United States for ransom. And it happened in 1870. Or 1874. He was born May 4th, 1874, and on July 1st, 1874, he was 4 years old, and him and his brother were Walter Lewis Ross were playing out in their front yard, and two men approached him, and it's some of the theory is that the two men had befriended them and come by many times and offered them candy in a carriage.
Get in that carriage.
Yes. And so they offered the boys. They offered the boys candy and money to buy firecrackers because it was just before the 4th of July. So the two boys jumped up in the carriage.
Sounds like a party to me.
Yep, they jumped up in the carriage, and it was it was in hold on just a second. It was in Philadelphia, but I was trying to think of the I wrote the name down, Candy.
They probably had like hard candy back then.
Well, and they were transported. The two men took the boys for a carriage ride throughout Philadelphia in places that the boys hadn't been before, or that's what it said. But they stopped at the party store and they told Walter.
Wait a minute. A party store in 1874.
Well, I called it a party store, but it's it's a store. They stopped.
They probably got like a 40-ouncer and a pack of.
They stopped the buggy and in front of a store. They stopped the buggy and they offered Walter 25 cents to go in and buy fireworks and candy. And when Walter went in, the carriage proceeded to pull out, and they left without Walter. And soon after, their father, Christian, assumed that the boys were playing at a neighbor's house. So he went to their house, and the neighbor immediately informed him that she had seen them riding in a carriage with two men. And so the father, began a search, and they somehow Walter ended up getting back home. I don't know if he told the storekeeper that, who he was and that two men dropped him off in a carriage, but he and Walter ended up getting back home. But Charles was still with the two men. And shortly after Walter returned home, they, proceeded to have everybody looking for Charles. And after a couple of days, several ransom notes came in through the postal service, and they were like really crazy ransom notes. Like the spelling was all wrong, and they had the ransom notes posted and wanted $20,000 because where they lived, and this was back, in 1800s. So $20,000 was a lot of money. And they lived in a very well-to-do area in Philadelphia. So these kidnappers assumed that they had money because of their home that they lived in and because of the area, which they also owned a modest dry goods stores, that sold things, and they just the truth was that the family was deeply in debt because of the 1873 stocks market crash. So the father had no means of getting this money, and so in the ransom notes it said, do not contact the police. If they did, then Charles would be killed. And so, the father didn't know what else to do because he had no means to come up with that kind of money. And so he notified the police, and it became one of the world's known and ransom kidnapping. So it was published in the newspapers, and at this time, Charles's mother was in the hospital and wasn't even at home. She was in Alabama, or no, Georgia. I just had it. She wasn't anywhere to be found. I mean, she was having illnesses, and she was in Atlantic City, and so he didn't even notify his wife. Well, then all of a sudden, all these publications came across. It was notified. It was on, in the papers, and she had read that, and she immediately came home. And so she had no idea that her son was missing. And I don't know how long
By the way, one of your kids is not here.
Huh?
By the way, one of the kids is not here any longer.
Well,
Right,
she wasn't home. She wasn't home.
Way.
She was in Atlantic City because she was there for illnesses. And it doesn't say what her illnesses were. It just said she was recovering in Atlantic City for illnesses. And
she was probably diagnosed with hysteria.
Right.
Wouldn't listen to her husband, so she got sent away.
Probably. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Sure for that was
Electroshock therapy.
Mm-hmm.
nope.
Lobotomies.
Oh yeah, lobotomy. Yeah.
Nope.
And so it became national news.
I do know.
And then did you also know that there was a song, Dexter Smith and W.H. Brockway composed a song, Bring Back Our Darling. Have you ever heard that song?
I don't think.
Well, they composed a
Is it the
song.
It's the like bring back my darling to me, right?
But that's I don't know, but maybe that's the song.
Bring back my darling to me.
Wow,
and so maybe that's the song that they're talking about. But they said that they composed a song, and there was a song composed for him, and they had several attempts to get with the kidnappers,
Mm-hmm.
but the kidnappers never showed up. And because I think there was, later in my story, there's an accomplice, and he was one of the kidnappers' brother-in-laws. And he worked for the New York City Police. And so he, I think, was given the kidnappers information that he shouldn't have been giving them. And so, they didn't show up to any of the ransom notes. And so they never got caught. But on December 13th in Big Ridge, Brooklyn, New York, the house belonged to a Judge Charles Van Brunt. And it was, these two kidnappers burglarized the judge's home. And Charles Van Brunt's brother, Holmes Van Brunt, lived right next door. And so when the house was getting burglarized, he gathered all of his family with ammunition and went and ambushed the two burglars. And the burglars were Bill Mosher and Joe Douglas. Bill Mosher was mortally injured or killed in the ambush, and Joe Douglas was mortally injured, and he lived for 2 hours after being shot. And he was able to communicate to Holmes and everybody that was in the home that ambushed the two burglars. And it was said that Joe Douglas had confessed that him and Bill Mosher were the ones that kidnapped, or that had the two boys get in their buggy, and they were the ones that kidnapped Charles Ross. And he said that there's no reason to lie about this because I'm going to die. But he, at the time of this going on, he was going on, so it was there was no consensus because of him dying, and all the people that were in the room at the time, they didn't know whether to believe it or not. But at this time, both of the men had passed, and they called Walter. They had him come to New York and identify these two men, or see if he knew who they were. And when Walters was 6 years old, they asked what the two men looked like, and he had described them, and they made out sketches and posted them in all of the newspapers. And he had said that one had a deformed nose, and he looked like a monkey. It looked like a monkey face. And so when he got to New York, because of Bill Mosher's, he had syphilis and it deformed his face. So he had a deformity. So Walters was able to describe this deformity to the police and say that he had like a monkey face.
Right.
And so because of his nose. And so everybody that was there listening to the story were shocked, and so they could not give a accurate report. And when Walters identified the two men and said, yes, that's who we got into the buggy with, they, knew that those were the suspects that had taken the boys. But because all the stuff when Joe Douglas was explaining or saying that all of the stuff, he never enclosed that the whereabouts of Charles. He just said that Charles was alive and that Mosher was Bill Mosher was the only person that really knew where that boy was. So I'm assuming that Mosher probably had him with his wife and him, but there's no, that's my assumptions. That's, I just put that in there, but he said that the boy Charles was still alive, and that he would be returned unharmed to his family, and he died before being able to give out a location of where this boy might be. But the former police officer, William Westerville, was a known associate of Bill Mosher, and he was his wife's brother. So the police officer that worked for New York City's police department was known to be an associate with Bill Mosher. And Bill Mosher's brother had contacted the police and said that the sketches looked like his brother. And so the police kind of knew that, okay, this is who they need to go at, this is who did it, but they still had no idea where to find Charles. And then William Westervelt was taken to court in connection with the kidnapping, but Walters said that no, and he had insisted that no, Williams was not an accomplice. He did not, he didn't have anything. He was not in the carriage at all. And so he was tried in 1875 for kidnapping, but because there was no evidence trying him to the kidnapping, and Walters insistent that he wasn't in on it, that he did end up getting a not guilty for kidnapping, but he also was found guilty of conspiracy and charged to 6 years in prison. And then he remained his innocence and swore that he didn't know the whereabouts of Charles Brewster Ross. 2 years after Christian's disappearance and kidnapping, Christian, his father, published a book, The Father's Story of Charles Ross and the Kidnapping Child, in order to raise money to continue searching for his son. And the search went on for years, and to no avail. They never came up with anything. And by 1878, the case began to wane, and Christian still was searching any way and every way that he possibly could to find his son. And to renew interest, Christian reprinted the book and began to give lectures in Boston. And he continued to do this until his death. And him and his wife continued to search for their son until their deaths. And Christian died in 1897, and then his wife died in 1912. And during their search for their son, they interviewed 575 boys and teenagers, and eventually grown men around the world who claimed to be Charles, all proved to be imposters. The Rosses eventually spent, before their death, $60,000 looking for their son. And, that's a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in 1924, on the 50th anniversary of the kidnapping, the newspaper began to run stories of the Ross abduction. By this time, Walter was an adult and was working as a stockbroker. And he and his 3 sisters still received letters from middle-aged men claiming to be their brother. And in 1934, Gustav Blair, a 69-year-old carpenter living in Phoenix, Arizona, petitioned the Maricopa County court system and went to court swearing that he was Charles Brewster Ross. And they when they went to court, he had told the jury that he had lived in a cave and was adopted by a man who had said that he was Charles Brewster Ross. So the court and the jury ruled in his favor and declared that he was, in 1939, Charles Brewster Ross. But Walters said that it was just a big crank and that he really wasn't Charles, because how his brother could still be alive is beyond him. And so him and his sisters never believed that Blair was their real brother. And so he said there's just no hope that Charles could still be alive. I mean, there's just absolutely no way that he could be alive. And Blair continued to say that, yes, he was his relative. And in Arizona, when they announced that he was Charles, he changed his name to Charles and moved to Philadelphia, and tried to write a book about his kidnapping and all this stuff, but it was a hoax, and it never flew. And everybody, nobody believed that he was Charles. And so he moved back to Arizona, and when Walter's parents and Charles's parents passed on, him and his sisters sold the property and never gave Blair any money from their parents' estate. And then come to find out, Blair died in 1943, still claiming that he was Charles, but by then DNA proved that he was not Charles Ross, that he really was Nelson Miller. And his DNA with Nelson's brother matched 99.9999 and said that he really was Nelson Miller. And so after they after he died, the property was demolished, and Walter and his sisters had the house demolished in 1926, and the estate is now a Clevedon. Let me see. Hold on. It's Clevedon or Cliveden. It's a Cliveden Presbyterian church and that's what occupies the spot of the kidnapping. And to this day, Charles Brewster Ross has not yet to be found, or they don't know whatever happened to him. And there's many databases named like one is the Charles Project, and it's missing persons database, and it is named because of Charles Ross, and it offers important information of missing persons and information, including thousands of documents and digital flyers and other resources. In certain ways, it serves as the same purpose as a newspaper that did when Charles Ross went missing. It provides information and means of the spreading message. And this one is the still, what was that other kid's name? The other kidnapping baby. Yes, Lindbergh's.
That's what I was thinking.
Yep. This, after that, this information really helped, I mean, it was that Lindbergh was the second one after this. And what is the well-known admonition based on Charles Ross's incident? Never accept candy from a stranger.
Which is what we teach now.
Yes.
Unless they're in a white van and they offer you a bunch of candy.
And so that's my little bit of a story. But the kidnapping of Charles Ross was one of the greatest unsolved crimes of the late 1800s, and but what happened to him is still unknown.
With the Nelson Miller though, because he claimed to be, he was left in a cave and like abducted, left in a cave.
It was just a fabrication. He made all of that up.
Maybe he really was abducted, and he really did think that he was Charles Ross. But
but like because they had
the DNA, later on. But.
I mean because they had, like he said, 570 people.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Claiming to be Charles.
Yeah.
And he probably read up on the stories and followed it and knew all of the information and what to say and how a judge and a jury could say that without proof. I mean, it's sad. It's sad, but any kidnapping is a sad story, and it's the mom and dad went to their grave not knowing whatever happened to their son.
Well, and even the brother
and Walter's to have to live with that for the rest of his life.
That's what I was going to say. Like he was only 5, so it's like you can't really. He was just a kid, but
and he let his, he left his brother in the carriage with those 2 men, and so think of what he had to.
Was Charles older, or was he the younger brother?
Charles was only 4 years old, and Walter's was 5. So Charles was 4 years old, and then of course Walter's was 2 years older. It's
right.
Yeah, it's a sad thing, but yeah, we do have. I mean, the same with. I can't think of his last name, but the other, the little boy Adam.
Yes.
Joe Walsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam Walsh.
Yeah. And
Adam Walsh.
that's why
Well,
we have Code Adams. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
that's why, you know, like, and then, you know, the Amber Alert is from a little girl named, you know, the
Kidnapping here.
Well, that Lindbergh baby
Well-
kidnapping, that made it a federal offense too.
right.
Right. And so the Malsher, I mean, the Ross was the first ransom
one.
kidnapping, and so there's so much data out there for people, and there's there's books, like I said, Little Charles Ross, The Shocking Story of America's First Kidnapping with Ransom by Normans, are published by the Little Brown Company in Boston, and that was in 1967. And I don't know, it has a bunch of stuff, but I don't think that has anything to do with this or what I was doing, because it was at the bottom. But
Interesting.
it is. It was, but it would be interesting to know whatever happened to Mosher's wife,
Right.
because where did she go, and was she in on it? I mean, somebody had to have known where that little boy was, especially because they were trying to get ransom money.
Either that, or he was like,
and then they moved to
a cage or something, and then Masha dies, everybody dies, and the kid starved to death.
Well, they all went to New York.
Mm-hmm.
So, did they take the kid with them? I mean, did the kid get raised in New York, or
right? I don't know.
And back then, I don't know. So, little Charles Ross is still unknown story.
What happened to? Didn't you say something about his brother-in-law? Was a part of it?
Well, the brother-in-law, that was Westerville, and he was a police officer for the New York, and he was an accomplice, or he was accomplice, but he got 6 years in prison. And so where did
yeah, so like what does he say? Like what did they say happened to Charles?
The police officer, his brother-in-law, said that when he knew Malsher, the child was still alive. Everything said that Charles was still alive when Malsher.
And doing what? And with who?
Well, they didn't say.
Right, like with who?
They didn't say. Bill Malsher was the only one. William Malsher, whatever. His real name is William, but he went by Bill, or it said Bill. William Malsher was the only one, and he died in the ambush in the burglary. So he was probably with his wife in New York, because.
Right, but how do you know that? Like, maybe he was like in a box in back of a carriage or something, and he got left there, and nobody knew where he was, so he starved to death.
Yeah, I don't know. And so, it's unsaid. I mean, it's and I don't know if they ever interviewed his wife, Malsher's wife. Or, or the brother-in-law, I mean, somebody had to have known where this little boy was, but they say that he went to his grave. Nobody knew except for Bill Malsher, William Malsher. So.
And they never said like why they was it just to get money? Is why they kidnapped?
Yeah, because they had just gotten out of jail. Mosher had just gotten out of jail, and they probably went down to Philadelphia, picked up these two boys because they went through the neighborhood and they thought, oh, all these people have money. They picked up the two kids thinking, oh, well, we'll get money for them. And they told the oldest one to go in and buy candy, and then they left without him and thought, oh, well, we'll get money for the little one.
That's curious that they left one.
He was probably asking too many questions. When are we going to go home? Why can't I do this? What are we going to do?
Well, yeah, he was 5 years old. He was a lot bigger, and
Hey, I can see that now. I can see that now, where you'd be like, you know what? We're going to pull over, and you can
just need one of you.
Right. Well, and he was probably saying, well, when are we going to stop and get candy and fireworks? Because that was the whole purpose of them getting in the carriage.
Getting in the van, yeah.
You told me that we were going to get.
It's odd that they would let that kid go, knowing he'd seen them. He could probably identify them. And,
right. That's true.
Well, these guys, the way that they wrote these ransom notes,
they're not
and misspelled them, and how they had done it. They probably were.
This is a 5-year-old kid. He's not going to be able to identify us. He's not
right.
Going to be able to
Exactly. They probably thought, there's no way that
1874, most people couldn't write a letter.
Right.
I wouldn't say most people, but especially rural areas and stuff, they wouldn't know how to write.
Well, and they were in and out of jail. They were convicts. They had just gotten released out of jail, probably for a burglary or something else. And then, that was probably their first kidnapping, and it just went from there. I don't know. But be nice if somebody, everybody's dead back from then, but it would have been nice to go through the files or some of the information that they've collected.
We need to contact that Renee from Jesse's story last week.
Yes.
Remy. Yeah.
Remy. And see if she can conjure up what happened to him.
Yeah. Possess these little boys. Yeah.
Yeah. Where's Charles?
Yeah.
Again, we need a house psychic.
Yes. And, like I said, maybe
a psychic on TV that said, because people always say, well, why can't the psychics figure that out? Why can't psychics? They're like, this one said, I wouldn't just go on TV and start talking about somebody's loved one and how they got murdered, or because I might tell the family if they contacted me or asked me or a police department, but I'm not going to get on TV and just start talking about what
that makes someone. Yeah, that makes some kind of sense though too, because even think about we were talking last week about John Benet Ramsey, why isn't there a psychic? But really, if some psychic came out and said, hey, I've been in contact with John Benet Ramsey, she said so and so did it, everybody's gonna be like, okay, really?
Right. Okay, yeah. Right.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that these people, maybe even the dead have come back and said, and nobody would believe the story that they're telling them. So it's Ramsey, you're Remy. No, but nobody wanted to believe what they said because it's just so far-fetched that people may dream about stuff, but they don't believe it because they think it was really just a dream. So, even with Charles, maybe he lived.
Right. But you got to think too, 4 years old.
Yeah.
Even if he lived with the wife, she could say, oh, your name's not Charles, it's Joseph, and then he's going to eventually forget that he went by a different name or whatever.
Or maybe he knew his name as Charles his whole life, and maybe they continued to call him Charles, but just changed his last name.
The last name. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So.
Because he probably at 4 years old knew he was Charles and just said, oh, your last name is whatever, Mosher, so if they moved to New York and raised him as a Mosher, how would anybody know who he was? And although they had flyers in the newspaper all over the whole United States. They put it, it was national, world known that about this kidnapping.
Still, at that time though too, you're so young. You're like, I'm sure he's not paying attention to that kind of stuff.
Well, I know, but anybody that would recognize him and
Maybe
the
they didn't
sketches
see
that
him.
the sketches that they had of him were very, very good sketches. I mean, they had
They could have back then too, though. You cut the hair, or put on a pair of glasses or whatever, and
yeah, that's true because he had locks of curls in
Yeah.
all of the pictures. So
And
and at that age,
of a
at 4 years
4-year-old
old,
boy is
their
pretty much
their
how
facial
they'll
features
be.
change so much because they lose all that baby fat.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Remember when somebody broke into our place in Lansing, and they made that sketch of the guy that Cassie, were you there working there then? And they made the sketch of the guy they thought did it.
No.
You don't remember that? So like we had it posted, like, have you seen this person? And so every guy that come in, I'm like, that kind of looks like you. Because it's like it's a pretty generic look,
Yeah. Are you talking about the person who came in through the bathroom ceiling?
Yeah. Remember, and they had a sketch of him.
I don't remember seeing the sketch.
Recording it and everything, and I was like, they did an interview with me, and I'm like, please don't ask me because, like, it looks like every guy that comes in here, And then
Could have been
it was
anybody.
like the spot that they got in was like literally this big, And then when they found the guy, he was like my size. I'm like, that's that guy did not.
I don't know.
Maybe he's a contortionist.
Right.
But I'm just saying those sketches, like it could be, especially back in 1874. I'm sure every 4-year-old looked just alike.
Right.
It shows pictures of Charles, and that's what he
They
looked
didn't have
like.
no from the party store. They didn't have no videos.
What?
Yeah, they did. They did. There was a bird over on the side.
Was down they probably blacked out the video camera.
Right,
I'm
exactly.
gonna do my hair like that. That's for sure. I love his hair.
Let's say.
And then
No, it wasn't that picture. Go back to the other picture.
And then this was him.
Kids had
This
long
was
hair back then.
yeah, they did.
That was a mullet. That was 100% a mullet.
That's a mullet.
That one.
That is where they came up with the mullet right there from that video. That
Oh, poor Charles.
what's his name? He probably went by Joe Dirt after that.
Oh, Dirty.
And then this was another sketch.
Yeah, I mean, like, really? That looks like every 1874-year-old kid.
Yep.
He looks a little bald, but other than that.
And they may have put out other sketches, as how sketchers do this is what he might look like now, and I don't know, the ransom notes and
Well, it probably was a big news story back then.
it was it got such publicity that like I said, that Dexter Smith, I don't know who he is, or W.H. Brockway, composed a song, Bring Back My Little Darling. So, and that was right after all of and then of course people started writing books, and then his father wrote a book, and I have not read the book, so. But they knew who the suspects were. They knew who kidnapped them. They just never found him.
They could
Can't find him.
information.
Yeah, they killed him before they found out where little Charles was.
Yeah, he probably was never alive after.
And so that was sad. No, because everybody said that he was alive. When Bill Mosher when Bill Mosher and Joe broke into the judge's house, they said that the boy was still alive at that time.
Where?
When they didn't say. They just said that they knew that the boy was alive. So I don't know whatever happened or why they didn't investigate that more. But it was said that Bill Mosher, when he was being tried and put in jail, said that when he was accused, he said that before the ambush at the judge's house, that the boy was still alive. So he was a police officer, so he knew about the ransom notes and all of the stuff because he was given the information back to Mosher, his brother-in-law, about what was being said, and that's why they never were at the ransom locations, because they knew not to go because the police were there. So.
Alrighty. Well, time sure flies.
That's all I got to say.
Very interesting story. Any girls have any questions or any thoughts?
No.
Well, good. When we get our house medium, we're going to have her cover some of these stories.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Didn't we know somebody? Jordan knew somebody. We need to get Jordan in on this. His friend was a medium in Lansing.
No, not that one. No. Well,
beggars can't be choosers.
Right. Right. Hey, they might have some answers for us.
Yeah. The one that burned the grill in the living room and burned the carpet up.
No, not her. She wasn't the medium. It was somebody else. Medium.
Okay, guys. All right, time is up.
Yes, it is.
Thank you very much for one more delightful edition of the Family School of Thought. We shall see you next week. Please contact us at our email address, which is thefamilyschoolofthought@gmail.com. I'm going to put that up there right now for you. And let us know your thoughts or any interesting stories that you might want us to cover too. Okay? Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.